right, so we are live. So this is James. I'm back at it for the 79th Street podcast, and today I have a few guests, and I want to allow them all to introduce themselves. So who want to start first?
I'm gonna show deference. Let Big Bro go for it. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? My name is Christopher Mitchell. I currently serve as an assistant director at a fine institution in the Northern Illinois region of Illinois, at Northern Illinois University. Um, let me see. I've been a higher ed professional for the past 11 years. 8 years as a academic counselor in a program called the Chance Program, and then 3 years as an assistant director, working with programming, different retention initiatives, and yeah, I'm also a PhD candidate and a lover of knowledge and all things that edify Black opulence.
He also loves long walks in the park, um,
Greetings.
romance movies. That was a lot. My my name is Sean Vincent. People know me as Vince. I am now adjacent to the higher education industry. I spent some time in higher ed. That's what I got a master's in, also from NIU. Spent some time there in admissions as well as in the Chance program alongside Chris and Bruce. I now find myself in the education software space. I work for a company that develops artificially intelligent chatbots for higher education institutions. And so before I got into higher ed, I was in tech. And so I've been able to merge the tech and higher ed space together to do something I really enjoy now. And so it's a really creative and booming industry that's making a way to keep students engaged, not only throughout the application process, but through matriculation. And in this age of the pandemic, it's important that schools look to adopt technology to reach out to students. So I'm glad to be able to contribute in that way.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Reed. I'm a student affairs professional. Been in higher ed for about 8 years now. Yeah, that's pretty much me. Short and sweet.
Are both short and sweet.
Right. I feel like I'm the rookie for real because everybody like finna be double digits, and I've been in here like 3 years. So the first question is pretty much, can you think of any instances throughout your collegiate career where you were the only Black male around, and do any of those instances kind of stand out? And I'll start just because this is one I kind of talk to my students all the time. So I remember being a first year student on campus, and I lived in Grant, and so everybody knew that's where a lot of the students of color lived because it was kind of like the cheapest residence hall. I ain't gonna lie, just gonna call it what it was. And I ended up being the only Black male on my floor. And I remember this one incident, like this Latino kid was like, "Oh, hey, can we call you Token?" And I was like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Nah." I'm like, we ain't gonna play that. I said, "You gonna call me James or King James? It ain't gonna be no Token." And I remember just, expressing that to Mr. Smith and one of my other mentors, and they was like, H9, we ain't doing that. But I soon learned that there was another kid who worked at the front desk in Stevenson who was in one of the white fraternities, and they called him Token. And I was like, wow, I'm like, that was crazy. But so that's the one instance that I instantly think of, like right in the door of college. And so I don't know if y'all have any instances where that has happened or that stand out for you.
I'll go next. The instance that stood out for me, like being in my undergrad collegiate experience, I went to Eastern Illinois. That's rural Illinois, for real. But like in the latter years of your programs, like in my major, I was a comms major, and just it wasn't a lot of representation like when you get like towards your junior and senior level classes. But I noticed like in groups, when I would get in groups in those years, it's like it was always an assumption that I wasn't gonna do any work, and people would just try to like berate, like I guess my ability, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They would just I'll do this. It's okay. You can have it. We'll do it. We'll do it. It's like it made me mad a lot. So, and I had to like voice my concerns with them, and if not with them, with the instructors.
Yeah. Similarly, I went to a PWI not too far. I think all of us went to an undergrad institution in Illinois. I was at Illinois State for my bachelor's, and at one point, one of my majors that I switched over 5 times was Parks and Recreation Management. Anybody ever seen Parks and Rec before? The show was hilarious, but that is exactly what I was going to school for, because why? But you can imagine in that industry, it ain't too many melanated folks in there. So I was the only chocolate chip in the vanilla ice cream for sure. Many a time, many a class. And, I was aware of it, especially when it came to my like performance on exams or assignments or whatever, group work, most definitely. I wanted to make sure that I overdid it. Like I over contributed so nobody had the stigma of the lazy Negro of the group, right? And so that's something I think that sticks with us throughout the higher education experience. If you go to a predominantly institution, and even thereafter, when you step into the professional space of feeling like you need to do 120, 150%, to keep away from the stigma that comes along with being particularly a Black male in collegiate space. So that was definitely ever present throughout my time as a student and even as a professional in this space now.
That's real. I think for me, the experience of being the only Black person in a educational setting started very early. I moved from Chicago when I was 10 years old to the suburbs, and we initially moved to Hinsdale, which was a fairly mixed population, but then moving from there, coming from an all-Black school in the city of Chicago on the south side in the hundreds, moving to the suburbs of Hinsdale, and then we stayed there for 2 years and then moved to Lisle. When we moved to Lisle, that's when I had my experience where I was the only Black kid in my classroom in 6th grade, and that went on for 3 years, to the point where the disparities, the marginalization, the labeling, and everything that I experienced was extremely racial and extremely indicative of the systemic racism that happens with Black and even Latino boys today, even still when you come to suburban areas. So for me, I remember there was a project in class my 6th grade year, and for the project, it was Black History Month, and I was in a group with 2 white students, and we were doing a depiction of what slavery was. And for me, not having the knowledge or the understanding of identity and all of that, my mother had no idea because I grew up in a single parent household. I ended up being the slave in this group project that I ended up being the slave in this group project um, that I look back at now, and I'm like, what the hell happened, and how the hell did this happen? And my teacher approved it and celebrated it and thought it was the best thing
That is the
presentation in the
wildest
classroom.
thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's
The
pretty.
wildest, and
That's pretty
that
wild.
that was where that was where that was where it started for me. And then, not to mention, several months after that, I ended up being placed in an ESL class, coming from the inner city, speaking no other language other than English. And at that time, Ebonics wasn't considered an official language, but we can go now and look and research it actually is an official language. But they placed me in the ESL. So I'm in a class with nothing but Latino um, students, and it was me and 3 other Black students. It was me. I can say I won't say their names for the sake of recording, but I know their names to this day. And it was 5 Black students, me included, and it was Latino students who did not speak English. And I remember them holding up flashcards and them showing us images of houses, boats, cars, and we have to phonetically speak those words
God,
as if we did not speak English. And that was for the Black students.
wow, that's deep. That's how I feel about that. That's wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe they let that slide. Like that's just wow. But I think that just goes to show you. And so I think with the next question, so when did you realize, or what, how did you cope with like some of those things, right? So I know Chris is talking about his experience with being put in the ESL class and he's native English speaker. And then I know my instance was pretty like being the only, like literally the only black guy on the floor. But how did you all like kind of cope with those instances, right? Where you felt like was there an outlet on campus, the school, or just in your life that you felt like you were able to take advantage of?
I'm gonna jump right in because I have to hop off in a second. But I mean, it made me gravitate toward my community a lot more. Um, but it also made me seek mentorship in a sense while being there. So I wanted to express myself in a way that they might not have been used to because I didn't want to be stereotyped. Especially because it's like I felt like I was being belittled in the academic setting. But it definitely made me make me seek my community out a lot more for that support.
Definitely. I know Bruce got to head out. Busy man, it's a man in high demand. So I'll let you later, Bruce. We'll hold it down from here. But I echo that, man. It made me cling to my community on being on the PWI. And so there's a book. God, I can't remember the name of the author of the book, rather, but it was like, why do black kids sit together at the lunchroom at the lunch table? Somebody want to?
That's it. That's the book.
Yeah. And so, that's what we do in every kind of space where we identify where the others that look like us, and we come to the lunch table with them. And so at school, we find our ways to Greek letter organizations. Everybody on this call right now, even Bruce, joined a different historically black Greek letter organization, right? And so there's reasons for that. You had predominantly white Greek letter organizations on campus that we could have joined, but we chose to go with our respective organizations. For different reasons, right? Because we chose different organizations, but one thing we all have in common that they're all rooted in blackness, and there's a reason for that. So being able to connect with organizations like that and different affinity groups based on interest with other black people, whether that's some kind of campus activities board or some hobby club or something like that, where you find more black students. That was the way that I kept myself afloat. And based on my experiences or our experiences as black administrators through higher ed is kind of what served as one of the influences, one of the reasons why we created the programming for what we call the Barbershop Talks. And so that initiative is something that myself, Chris, Brother Kielo Gray, and David Seymour, and Officer Menelik Shaw, we programmed at NIU to have a space for specifically black men to come together in a physical space and not only talk amongst each other, but to talk about real life critical things that are going to be paramount to their success as students, as men, and as professionals thereafter. And so, I don't want to ramble on too much about that, but I know we're going to get into that some more. But that, just that personal experience we had is part of what went into that program.
From my personal experience, which kind of helped pivot me or give me the understanding that I needed. Well, coming to NIU as a student was big for me because that was my first experience with a black male teacher. And so my first time seeing someone who looked like me in a classroom setting actually teaching me about myself. I had not had any prior understanding of what educated blackness looked like prior to me coming to college, because college for me wasn't necessarily like the first option. And so with that, I was always in search for relatedness because I always felt like I didn't belong. Looking at that sixth, seventh, eighth grade experience that followed me throughout my educational experience. So even when I came to high school and even going to college, always trying to find a space that I can call my own. So what educational psychologists refer to is a basic psychological need of relatedness, which we can also talk about in correlation to a sense of belonging, which is essentially the same thing. Me always searching for a sense of belongingness and wanting to relate, whether that be to other athletes, whether that be to other Black men in some capacity, especially coming from a single parent household, being raised by my mother. And so the idea and the concept of finding a place that I can call my own on a campus like NIU, considered the PWI, was extremely difficult. And what myself and others had to do was kind of create that space for ourselves where we felt safe and secure. And so that's what I did. My first experience with a Black male teacher was Mr. Derek Smith at NIU. He's a legend at NIU just from his
everybody granddaddy.
Right, everybody's grandpops, everybody's mentor. And from that, I said, you know what? I need to be what I've never seen before. I want to be that successful, educated Black male who others can look up to and see and say I've been impacted. So that kind of helped my journey because I never wanted the city kid who moved to the suburbs, so has the best of both worlds, to be lost in a place where they don't know who they are and cannot find themselves. And so that was my experience and how that kind of helped me, and it helped me to even further and look at further my research and look at other components in which Black males, what we need in institutions of higher education and even outside of education. And to that point that Sean earlier about the book Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, that's by Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum. And so that'd be a good book for anyone to pick up if you're looking for other books and other articles and people to research. Dr. Sean Harper has some excellent writings in regards to Black males and how they're affected and systemically oppressed with the disparities in education early on. And we see that within the labeling, we see that within the behavior disorders, we see that within the different diagnoses from ADD, ADHD, and the prescribed medications that are administered to our Black boys and brown boys, and they're put in environments where they can't succeed because the teachers are not equipped to adequately provide them the resources and instructions that they need within their styles.
Man,
Oh, sign.
I'm glad you said that, Chris. Just talking about just how the education system has failed Black boys throughout their career, and so I think that's critical because I think I was able to piece it together, like say in college, like being a Black male, I definitely found a home in the Black Male Initiative, and I think I just needed that camaraderie, like as a freshman, because like say y'all going, y'all programming together, y'all had meetings, going to eat, doing community service, and I felt like I just needed that home base, and also I found a home in the Center for Black Studies with Mr. Smith, where I was at his office the first day of class because my high school counselor was like, "Hey James, go see Derek Smith, tell him I sent you," because they were best friends, and just to give me a connection to the campus. And I don't take it for granted because I still talk to Mr. Smith to this day. Like I just chopped it up with him like 2 weeks ago, and we talked for like 2 hours, just catching up. And I think everybody should look to find a home base if you don't feel a connection to your campus. Like I think no matter where you go, everybody should be able to find some type of connection to the campus. If it's a student org, a particular department, a particular faculty or staff member, I think those connections will benefit you all in the long run. And so I wanted to throw it to Sean because I know he wanted to talk about the barbershop.
Yeah, pardon my house phone in the back reason. Man, you're like, who has a house phone? Um, yeah, so the barbershop talk, like I said, it was something that four or five of us put together on the campus of NIU, but it's a program that I believe um, can have impact wherever there are Black men on campus. And so space is multifunctional. It's a space of community where these brothers can congregate, come and break bread, because we always have food present, and we know students love food, right? But there's a symbolism in that as well. We're sharing items together, and we're eating and feeding ourselves as well as information. So there is that. We also have a dynamic in the way that we set up the room where they have to somewhat face each other. We kind of set it up in an auditorium style, and there's like a shape of U with these seats, and they have to look at one another. And in the middle of this U, we have elders of the room. It's usually two speakers, older Black men that at some point, all of us who are co-creators of this program, we've sat in there, but we've also invited other Black men from various walks of life, other administrators, other kinds of professionals to come in and speak from a point of experience and wisdom. And it's not just lecture, it is conversational. So we encourage the brothers who attend this to engage in dialogue, to ask questions. And whenever possible, we try to encourage them to not to treat this like a classroom. You don't have to raise your hand. Like, this is a conversational space. We're all on equal grounds here. Yes, we are elders in the room, with the wisdom and knowledge here, but so you also have your own knowledge and your own experiences, and those are valid. And so we encourage them to engage with one another, to engage with us, and we talk about everything from financial literacy to some of those questions you brought up, asking us about what our experience has been like as Black men on campus, and how do we cope with that experience, and how do we grow in those experiences. We talk about those things. We actually have an entire domain area where we pull from and try to create programming around. But it's something that out of their own mouths has been transformational for them, and creating a safe space, a sacred space. It's kind of like no women allowed in the barbershop. We intentionally decided to replicate this space around the barbershop. We literally had barbers there cutting up brothers for free, not only to add to the setting and the audience, but to do a service for them. And as we know in our communities, the barbershop is it's a bit of a temple for us. You go in there and talk, you're bound to hear any and everything go on in the barbershop. And so we wanted to create this space, but also be pointed and focused in the kind of conversation that we've had.
Yeah, I'll jump in on the barbershop as well. So when we created it, I think it was 3 years ago, because we knew that there was a lack of uniformity and summit, like that coming together for our Black males. We had various organizations. We had all the male fraternities, but there was a missing component of elders being able to pour into the younger generation. So initially it started off with a conversation between Shaw and myself, and we ended up pulling in all these different brothers who we knew could impact and help us galvanize the Black men from all different areas of life, all different areas of interest. And so we wanted to cover all spectrum. And so even the title of Barbershop, it just opened up the opportunity for dialogue and that free space for free thinking and the opportunity to talk about any and everything. And so we go by the name of Legacy Builders because the objective was to build a legacy, and more so looking at the legacy that wasn't created for us, being millennials, and some of our members of our group of the Legacy Builders are Generation X, and we've also incorporated some baby boomers. So we got 3 different generations: millennials, Generation X, and baby boomers, all coming together and providing that element of rites of passage, which we don't have in our Black community now. There's no rites of passage. And so like if you look at every other culture, from Latino heritage to Eurocentric heritage, there's a component of that culture which says, hey, you are a man now. We look at our homes, we look at how we became the men that we are today. I can't tell you what that rites of passage was. If we go back to our roots in Africa and we say, okay, what was the rites of passage? Each tribe had a different type of rites of passage. And so for us, it's that coming together, it's that coming into the room, and it's that self-awareness that brings the element of surprise for many of the Black men there, but also the element of mentorship. So there's 6 kind of domains that we focus on, which Sean mentioned earlier, but those are contemporary self-awareness, financial literacy, interpersonal relationships, historical self-awareness, collectivism, and universal wellness. And those 6 components kind of drive our conversations. And so what we do is we a lot of times take current topics, current issues, and from that, we're able to incorporate our students' real life experiences. And we do that in a professional setting, but under the guise where they have full autonomy to be who they are without being censored. And so we've seen it change life. We've had guys break down. We've had guys be as intimate and expound on their personal experiences. It's been a breakthrough for many guys to the point where we get guys oftentimes asking us when the next one is and wanting to be in that space. And so Barbershop has been changing brothers' lives since the inception of the literal barbershop, where you go get you a fade, and we just made it transformative in another way, where you can get your mind, you get your hair cut, you can also get your mind kind of worked on and cut up so you can be better.
Hey, I appreciate y'all for that too. You know, just being someone that's been like actively involved and mentoring like for years, and like I said, working in a college setting, working with high schoolers. Those spaces are definitely needed. And I think like a lot of times people like, oh, we don't see the importance of it, but I see the importance of it. Like, I think it was important. And I remember when y'all first launched it, me and Sean had a conversation like right after, just to go down. I'm like, bro, that's dope. Like, because like it was just good to see it done, like I said, on that magnitude on a campus that embraced it. I would say, because I know at the last school I worked at, I don't feel like they kind of embrace some of those spaces that you would try to create for Black males. And I think that showed in their admissions, because they weren't able to recruit in that many Black students in retrospect.
Oh yes, the enrollment will tell you, and the retention will tell you, because it's one thing too. You got some institutions, and I worked in admissions, right? You got some institutions that will front load all the admissions materials with the diversity folks, and to quote Chris, the tokens, right? They'll put that all over there. You come into campus, and they intentionally show you, the kind of things that might appeal to your Blackness. You're like, oh, word, this is a diverse campus, and you get there, and it ain't. And they have no support systems or no ways to affirm you in your identity and help you develop that identity strongly. And then, yeah, you were admitted, but now you're not retained.
Yeah.
So that, in mind of the retention piece, that is the barbershop talk is meant to be a retention intercessor.
Yes.
That is exactly what this is about. How do we identify what problems are going on this particular campus. Because there's the thing, a barbershop campus at NIU, a barbershop talk program at NIU may have completely different conversations than what happened on your campus, right, at Columbia.
Yeah,
The
most
context
definitely.
of the campus is different.
Yeah.
NIU finds itself in a arguably rural part of Illinois. And so those experiences, these black men that are largely from the city of Chicago, largely from the south and west sides of Chicago, who are now in this rural place, they have to interact with the community as well as the institution, and so that's going to be different than a Columbia where they're still in the city.
Right.
They have challenges of their own. They're different to the context of the campus, but challenges nonetheless. But either way, those things that are stressing them and that may be impacting their ability to be retained or with their ability to be resilient and the school's ability to retain them rather may be different from campus to campus, but that all can be uncovered just through conversation.
Yeah.
And a great thing about how we've done this program is that conversation, we in a way it stays in the room because we ensure there's privacy amongst, or there's an anonymity amongst what's being discussed there. But we also take the conversations and we aggregate those surveys that are quantitative in nature, and we also have, those who are willing to participate and give their own kind of testimonies. We take that qualitative data, and then we go back to administrators and say, these are the issues as self-described from our black male students on this campus. This is what stands in the way of them being successful here. Now, you as an administrator and as an institution, now you have a responsibility. You have the data here that tells you this is what my students say that is either preventing them from being successful, or these are the resources that they say that they need to be successful. What are you going to do about it now?
Right. You say something great, Sean, that I think higher ed institutions need to focus on. Specifically, when you talk about the retention and the recruitment aspect of black males and even brown males, universities and colleges will do whatever they can to get them in the door.
Absolutely.
But they're not doing what it takes to keep them. And you can't hire one black male professional or one black woman professional or one Latino woman or male professional and expect them to rally up and be accountable for 500 plus students. It's not feasible. It's not equitable. It's not possible, especially when you're talking about PWIs, Ivy Leagues, or schools that are not centered around like an HBCU type of culture. And so one thing that we do is create that sense of belonging, that safe space. The reason why we have so many black male professionals a part of our group and just interacting with the students is because we want to give them multiple different perspectives, but then also let them know, hey, if you don't connect with Chris Mitchell, you can probably connect with Sean. If you don't connect with Sean, you can connect with Bruce. If you don't want to be a Sigma or want to be an Alpha and you connect with a Kappa, hey, we got somebody for you. And so it's one of those situations where we try to, the black male experience and the brown male experience is so vast, it's so huge. The socioeconomic situations are so different. The family dynamics are so different. And we don't want to make the assumption that all black males come from the city. All black males come from Inglewood. All black males come from the west side where they ain't got no grass. All black males come from west side did. All black males from the suburbs. We don't want to make those assumptions. And so what we do to encourage the retention, to encourage the sense of belonging, is we have as many black males as we possibly can get who can be invested into the culture. And so the biggest thing is the investment, the knowing that you're going to be there, that if a student calls you on an emergency or needing some assistance, needing some help, that, we want that authenticity. We're not doing this just to check boxes. And oftentimes, I feel like when institutions hire professionals to fill these racial equitable roles, what happens is the duty doesn't become, let me truly invest in these students who need the services, but it becomes, let me check a box. Let me do programming just to say we did it. And there has to be a heartfelt, authentic approach, and students need to feel empowered and challenged so that they can challenge these people who are mentors, these people who are role models in their communities. And so if you're a student listening to this podcast, you have the authority and the power to challenge your mentor, that person who's in their role providing you support. And we accept the challenge. I know in the barbershop with the legacy builders, all of us accept the challenge. We do our best to answer the students' needs and questions given the time that those things are asked. But it's the university's responsibility. And one reason why all the guys came together for Legacy Builders to create the barbershop was because we realized that the university did not do its part. So the barbershop talk that we're talking about, it's affiliated with NIU because we all came together at the institution, but it's a privatized thing to where the university doesn't dictate or control how we interact with our students. So we pretty much banded together because we saw that there was a need that the university wasn't meeting.
Woo, hey, that was a lot. I definitely love what I'm hearing, and I can just speak on like when I was in my last role. So, of course, being in my last role, I was one of very few like black males on the campus, and let alone one of the black males that actually worked with students, minus the police officers. And I never like try to knock the police officers because I met some pretty cool officers in college, so I'm definitely always open. But they did have a mentoring program that they used to recruit black males into the school. It was called Strong. And I remember they had hired somebody right after I started. He came, he had left after a year, and they didn't refill the position. They just kind of let the program kind of phase out. And then me being a professional, being a black male, a lot of the students was coming up to me like, "Hey, James, man, what's going on with Strong?" And like I said, and I was unofficially affiliated with the program. Like in the process of them hiring, I was going in, checking in with their meetings, and stuff. So I had built a relationship with some of the students, but I felt like our department left me hanging because nobody didn't say nothing. I had to seek out information because students kept coming to me. And then, like I said, and it just got to the point where I was like, nah, I don't think this is right. Like, they need to put somebody in that position because, that's adding on to my caseload and duties when I was working for a grant. And so my supervisor was kind of like, yeah, you can't do that. If you had those students in here, it better be on your own time. And so it just put me in like a awkward situation. And so I'm just, like I said, glad that you all had, like I said, that camaraderie and that bond, like I said, because I wish it was more, but I think it just attests to like now, like say, I'm no longer at that school, and some of the students I came across have graduated, but I still keep in contact with them. It's just because I was able to make that connection with them, and I was real. Like I think, just being authentic and everything, like holding them accountable, they definitely rock with it. But I do felt like in that position, I was left hanging by our department because nobody, like I said, nobody came to me. I had to seek answers, and ultimately they never filled that position, which I think was a disservice to the students they had admitted into the school under that program.
That's good that you mentioned that. And something that sticks out to me, James, is that true mentorship goes beyond proximity. So regardless of how close you are, regardless of you working for that institution, there's still a need. And those brothers who needed your assistance and help are going to come back. Crazy thing happened to me. I had a brother who, I came to NIU in 2003. I sound old, dating myself, right? But I was an orientation leader for the summer. I had a brother who reached out to me, and I met him in 2004. And so fast forward from 2004 to 2020, this brother hit me up like late December saying, hey, Chris, long time no see. You was always a mentor to me. I'm like, what? I didn't know this. We never really had conversations outside of me being encouraging to him and trying to encourage him and whatnot in his freshman year. I'm a sophomore. He's a freshman at the time. But he hits me up almost 16, 17 years later. My math is off. I'm not a mathematician. And he's like, hey man, you was a mentor to me. Can you help me? Can you reach out to a long lost family member that I haven't seen since birth? And I'm like, whoa, what? This is aggressive. I don't know how to handle this. But you'll have, I said it to say, you'll have people reach out to you because of the seeds that you plant. And you don't have to be in the field necessarily to plant the seed. The way things work now, you can still be that mentor and still make that impact and still plant that seed. And so all it is a word. So brothers need it. And so if anything, I'm encouraged by you saying that, because the fact that they still reach out to you lets me know that, you know, we all in this together. We all doing this right.
Yeah, I learned so much, from all of y'all. Like I know we had, I don't want to say minimum interaction, but we had some interaction, and I was able to take from you and take from others and use that to to build me into this mentor, this professional. And I remember back in like 2015, I was telling you, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do higher ed for grad school. You was like, I knew it. I'm like, what you mean you knew it? He said, James, I just knew it. I knew that's what you was gonna do. And I was like, I ain't even know it.
Wow. And you had it in you, bro. You were a leader on campus to the point where you had no choice. And you had a passion for mentorship. You had a passion for excellence. You had a passion. You had that drive to want to see black males succeed and come out. And that's the biggest thing. Like we as black men specifically, you know what I'm saying? We have a habit of finding a way out and then being stingy and selfish with the recipe and the remedy of fixing it. You know what I'm saying? And I think the culture is changing more so now than what it was in the past, but you got that in you. You got that mindset where if you got it, you're gonna make sure everybody around you can get it as well. And that's the benefit that, that's what mentors are. That's what mentorship is. That's what discipleship is. That's what good leaders do. Good leaders lead those who they know are in darkness. They lead them with the light. And the thing is, a good leader will always leave light bulbs. A good leader will always leave a sign of light to where when that person who may not know who James Alfred is, they can still see James Alfred's path. And so I think being able to leave that legacy, being able to leave that light. shut up, John. That's what you do, bro. And
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna pass the plate.
Yeah,
passing the plate. Sean, go ahead.
Sean, there you go.
100%, man. It's funny. Higher education is one of those hidden career paths. It will find you. James, I don't know if your undergrad, if you knew what higher ed was as a concept. I surely didn't. I know for me, my dean of students, Rick Lewis, legend in the higher ed game. I was in my last semester, I was in my first semester of my senior year. It was. And I'm talking about how I'm not sure what I want to do after college. And I know I have this passion for helping others to achieve goals. And I found a value in education and everything like that. And I'm like, Rick Lewis, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have graduated. What do you do? Like, what is this thing that you're doing called Dean of Students? Like, what is that? And he's talking about higher education and student affairs. I'm like, what the hell is that? So there happened to be a student affairs 101 conference, which is a statewide annual conference that they have in Illinois. And this one was hosted at Eastern that year. And like in a couple months, we're going to take a drive down there to this conference and you're going to learn everything you need to know. I'm like, all right, bet. Got in the van, went down there, and just blew my mind. I didn't know there was a whole profession of people outside of your professors at a college. I'm like, when I think about college, I just think about the teacher, but you don't think about the fact that there are directors of culture centers, there are people that recruit and bring you in, the mission staff, they're the academic advisors and all the support services, right? And so I'm like, oh, that does make sense. These people do have to get jobs. And so that's how higher ed kind of found me. But I've been so fortunate to connect and make connections with students that have benefited from what I have to offer, benefited from I've benefited from connections I made with other professionals like Chris and Bruce and everyone else we just kind of named, but just from everywhere, where people in this field have a genuine desire to help people get to the next step or whatever that next step is. That's really the best way to kind of describe it. You're trying to help someone else fulfill their potential. And so, I echo what Chris is saying about James in the sense that you obviously have that in you, that kind of passion for others that aid you well in being a mentor, being a student affairs professional. And your students are just gonna benefit from here until you hang it up, man.
Hey,
Real talk.
so the only thing I say, so believe it or not, what happened? I went to like a conference like freshman year, and they was talking about student affairs. Believe it or not, I was really into the Residence Hall Association. Now, of course, I'm not gonna say I remember everything from freshman year because I was still trying to find myself because I was on academic probation. So I was just I was going with the motions trying to get off AP. And then like fast forward, like I want to say it was 2014 over the summer, I was a tour guide and my supervisor was like, "Oh, hey, somebody teaching this class. It was a intro to student affairs. It was like somebody teaching this on the undergrad level was like, you should take it and think about it." I took it and I was like, "Oh, this is dope." Like, because, and it was funny because we dissected Monsters University from a higher ed perspective. So that was just pretty cool to do, like, in the undergrad level. And I was like, okay, I can see myself doing that. And then when somebody tells you like all of your experience just goes right into the field, from like being a tour guide, working in the cultural center, working in Trio, working in student involvement, all of that just meshed right into it. And that's really, I think, how I just figured out like, okay, this is something I want to do, and this is something that I'm gonna do. And that made me apply to go to grad school for the field. So that was kind of my elongated answer.
You know what? That's awesome because that's a rare occurrence, and especially being from where you from. You from off the 9, man. You from 79, right? So,
right.
you know how it is for us. So coming into the space of higher education from being a first generation college student and being from Chicago, sometimes your exposure to careers and majors is very limited. You might hear the same 15. All right. Like, there are teachers, there are people who major in business, and what do they do in business? I don't know. There's various kinds of STEM majors, and a couple of everyone interested into psychology and sociology, right? But there's so many other paths, and I'm gonna just throw a lob to you for your podcast. It might be dope for your listeners to have some kind of a podcast on like some of those hidden careers and majors to consider, especially those who are in their discovery phase and undecided. That may be something valuable for them to hear, because it's just so many pathways out there that fit skill sets, that fit interests that I had just never heard of until I was already 70, 80 hours in my coursework. So I'm just throwing that out there to be done.
That's real. And I always advocate for education and entrepreneurial endeavors. Because at the end of the day, can nobody take your education, but at the same time, you want to make your own money and establish your own worth. And there's just a little nugget sidebar. Pursue entrepreneurial endeavors, whatever it is, whether it be real estate, whether it be clothing lines, whether it be tattoo artists, drawing, art, painting, whatever you do. Make sure you do that as well.
Yeah, because society needs all of them. Everybody can't be a doctor. Everybody can't be a lawyer. And not saying that you're not worthy of it, but everybody got different passions, and that's the one thing I just try to preach to people. I say, do your passion. Like, the one thing I can say is that all of us are passionate about higher ed in some aspect of it, versus where, like, I remember having conversations with students and even my brother My own brother, when he picked his major, he's like, oh, I'm trying to make this money. I said, bro, you sure? Like, you should probably do something you're passionate about, because when stuff get rough, you know, you're going to be able to say, I got to overcome this, versus if it's just something you just doing for a paycheck at the end, you know, it might not work out for you. So I always push passion.
Absolutely.
And if you're passionate about any of that things, I say do it.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's exposure, especially coming from a place with lack of resources or lack of access to resources. If you're not exposed to something that could possibly be a passion for you, you'll never know you're passionate about it. So you'll walk around life aimlessly unfulfilled. And so I think it's our responsibility as educators to expose our young brothers and sisters to everything possible that they can do. And specifically with education, you never could have told me I was going to pursuing a PhD, because I hated school. I still hate school to this day. Like, I hate school. I hate school, but I love the knowledge and the empowerment that I get from learning. And so, but the bureaucracy, the systemic oppression from school, I know I'm a part of the scholastic system at a higher education purview, so that I can dismantle that very system. And so for me, that's my purpose within higher ed. If I see Black and brown communities are being marginalized and not getting the resources that they need, I'm about to join, you know, your institution, and I'm going to crack the code, and I'm going to be that hand, that paraclete, or that guide for students who don't know and have the understanding of who they can be and what they can do. And so I think that from my chance experience, because college for me was never really an option. It was it was kind of forced. I had to do it because it was my only way to be something that I never saw before. And so exposure is key. I try to expose my kids to things that I never saw or seen before, because I want them to know fully who they are by the time they're 13, 15 years old, and they can't be wavered or influenced.
Yeah, and you know, on a note of exposure, that's exactly what this platform is about. So I want to give a shout out to the 79th Street Podcast for sure. You know, James, everything that you're doing, you're putting on for the community, for educators, and most importantly for the students in this next wave. So I just want to give you your flowers while you're here early, starting in the podcast.
Appreciate it, bro.
Wait to see where you go with it, man.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
You got any final words? Because I know you said you had to hop off soon. So you got any final words?
I want to encourage everyone to, in every context, remember to guard your mind, your time, and your energy. Don't make war, make memories. Remember these things always as you make wise choices. That's my sign off.
Y'all here sounding like a haiku.
I would say, Chris, you got any final words?
My final words, man. Shoot, look, don't let anybody ever tell you you are unworthy or you are not good enough. I've had teachers, I've had administrators, I've had educators tell me that I wouldn't amount to anything, that I would never graduate. And I stand before you today as somebody who cannot be shaken or broken. And I know with this current generation, y'all are strong. And so I know if I can make it, you all can too. This is not by any means a sermon on pull yourself up by your bootstraps, because I'm aware that some people don't have boots, and some people who have boots don't have straps. And so with that being said, I want to encourage you and empower you to let you know that you are an unstoppable force. You can and you will be successful. You will be as successful as your mind will take you. And so I encourage you to expand your mind, expand your relationships. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find you a new crowd of people to hang out with. Have some ambition, have some goals, set long-term and short-term goals, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to take risks, because if you don't take a risk, you will never get an understanding of who you are in that risk, and understand that every single trial, every single tribulation, every single bad thing that comes your way, it may have came your way, but it did not destroy you, and you are still breathing. So because you are still breathing, you can and you will be successful. All you got to do is just flip that switch, turn that on, and, you know, be unstoppable, because that's who God made you to be. And so I just want to encourage everybody with that, young and seasoned. Y'all are great. And thanks, James, man. This is a dope platform, bro. So
Thanks, James.
No
Appreciate
problem. So Bruce, I wanted to ask you, since you jumped back on, were there any last words you wanted to say? You know, just in general, just encouraging,
it. It's hard.
anything.
It's hard to follow up what Chris was just saying, man. I echo everything he said. Oh man, that was a powerful message, because it spoke to me too. But man, just believe in yourself, man. That's all I want to say. Again, he mentioned it's like seasoned and young. There's nothing you can't do, but you defeat yourself if you never try. So just keep going, stay at it.
Did you have any other questions for us, James, while we still on, or
No, that was it.
How
Like
you
I said,
feeling?
I'm feeling good. I ain't gonna. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great, actually.
Cool.
You know, I just wanted to say I
cool.
definitely appreciate, you know, all of y'all for jumping on. Chris, Bruce, and Sean. I don't think y'all know this, but I know Sean and Mr. Smith might know this. But when I first started working professionally in higher ed, I struggled, right? I struggled. And the reason I struggled was because, like, I went from being like probably this all-star student leader, and then I had to become the, you know, like the master or the OG. Like, I had to go from student to Mr. Smith. And when I say Mr. Smith, you like, I say that with the utmost respect, because you got all these students looking to you for guidance, and I didn't have anybody to go to. So I'm enjoying this just because everybody's in a different point of the career, and so I'm able to learn from everybody else. Like I said, because I'm three good years in professionally, right? You know, out of grad school, you know, and when I started, it forced me to kind of expand on my network, right? Where, you know, you realize, okay, somebody else, he went to the same school, he working in higher ed, he in Chicago, let me connect. And I think it forced me to expand upon my network to kind of build more connections outside of just the school I was at, because I was in a, you know, being in Chicago, it's big, but it's a lot of places of higher ed where you could make a connection, like, say, you know, worst case scenario, lunch with somebody, you know. So, but I struggled at first, I'm not gonna lie. And I think this is just dope. Like I said, that you all had that camaraderie, you know, of being together. And also that y'all have a network of other Black men that you can reach out to, get in contact with, and build upon. Because I think that's important in the field that we work in. Like, as much as we all are mentors, we got mentors too, where we're looking for something from, or we just need advice and things of that sort. So I just want to appreciate y'all, like I said, for jumping on and like I said, like I said, teaching me.
Thanks for having me.
Man, no doubt, bro, for real. Like, and to be honest with you, bro, the crazy thing about it, I didn't get a true higher ed mentor until a year ago. And I've been in the field looking for one. I remember I went to one of my teachers in my EDD program when I was an EDD student, and I was like, hey, would you be my mentor? And I ended up, you know, providing letters of support for that faculty member, you know what I'm saying? But that faculty member didn't really necessarily do anything to help me. And so for me, man, mentorship is key. And if you need anything, bro, for real, as
I appreciate it.
I don't want to say seasoned higher ed professional, but as a professional who's been in the game a little bit longer, if you need anything, bro, don't hesitate. We here, and anything we can do to support, give you a different perspective, just how to navigate, whether it be office, whether it be systemic things that you notice, man, let us know. We'll do the best we can to assist you, because we are a unit.
I appreciate y'all.
You know
I appreciate
y'all.
I definitely do.
Talk, John. Talk.
All right, so I'm